Yep.
All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the August edition of Coffee Time with Norm. Um, Norm, since Multi Shelter Solutions does not sell any heating equipment, why would you think that it is necessary to devote a whole segment to heating?
So heating is potentially the most significant expense for a grower next to labor. So it is definitely a concept that you need to get a handle on. Now, we used to sell heaters, but then stopped mainly out of consideration for the customers. Since I'm not a licensed heating professional, giving advice was always sort of a gray area. Now, additionally, there is the whole area of servicing. If you are going to have a problem with a heater, that will not be on a nice day in July. And so you will need to have someone come immediately. If you do not already have a relationship with a heating person, you could be waiting for a considerable amount of time. So it was deemed in the best interest of the customers to step back and let them deal with somebody locally so that they could have that relationship.
Okay. And what areas that you will typically give a grower advice on when it comes to heating?
So there are three areas mainly. One is how to make the greenhouse more heat efficient so that your heating bill will be lower and not create a crippling expense. The second area would be on what features you should be asking for and have included when you are making a heater purchase. And the third area is how to properly install this heater so that it will not stress out the building and give you the proper level of heat in the structure that you want to get.
Okay. Making a greenhouse more heat efficient sounds like a very good place to start.
Now, uh, the one area that is pretty standard, at least when dealing with a plastic covered greenhouse, is to go with a double layer of plastic. There are a number of different things that you can include in this to make that more efficient. The first would be to consider infrared poly, which we refer to as IR poly. It has a component to it that makes it less likely to transfer heat. And this will be a positive in the winter and also in the summer. This would typically be done as the inside layer of a double poly because it also has an anti-condensate additive to it. This will potentially reduce your heat loss by an additional 15%. The double poly in itself, if done properly, will give you a 30% uh, reduction in the heat loss. Now, the idea of the double poly is to create a dead air space. And the closer you get to having a dead air space, the more efficient or closer you're going to get to that 30% heat savings. Now, it's a little bit tricky when you're having the double poly on because obviously it's fastened towards uh, it's pinched off around the edges. 4 inches is considered the optimum space, and it's going to be very difficult to have that consistently right through, but that is what you are aiming for. Sometimes you have your outside layer too loose, and so you will get 6, 8, 12 inches of space, and it is virtually impossible to have dead air space when the space is that big. You will lose a little bit also towards the edges because you have because it's pinched, so you're not going to have that dead air space or that 4 inch, sorry, that 4 inches of space. The other area that typically is a little bit more challenging is over the ridge. Now, if you have the outside layer too tight, sometimes it becomes an issue uh, where it's pinching off at the ridge. So you're going to get one side inflated and not the other side. If that happens for your greenhouse, give us a call and we can give you some pointers on how to get that air from one side to the other. Once this has been achieved, it's not an ongoing problem. So, like I said, getting dead airspace is the goal. Now, this is why it's important to periodically just take a walk around your structure to make sure that there is no um, leakage. Like if you've gotten your plastic hit with something and you've got a little puncture mark, you're going to get air escaping. Now, if the hole is small, you may not immediately notice this because uh, the inflator is still keeping up with the replacement, but that will create a transfer of air. So as this air escapes, you're getting new air in, and you will be losing on that dead air space. So it is important to periodically just double check to make sure that you're staying properly inflated. An easy way to sort of double check to give yourself a heads up on this is to get into the habit of just pressing against the plastic. And if you're fully inflated, it will have a certain pressure resistance. If your air is escaping, you're not going to have that same thing. So if you notice that it's inflated, but you can press on it and collapse it a little bit, you know that you're leaking air somewhere and you better identify that. We also have a very good repair tape for patching these holes.
What are things that should be a part of the greenhouse heater? I'm thinking that the old one out of my house might not be a good option.
No, and the reason that the one out of the house is not anything better than just a very temporary fix is that humidity in a greenhouse is the killer. And so traditionally, the heat exchanger and the burners of furnaces in a house would be aluminized. And what you need in a greenhouse is a stainless steel heat exchanger and burner. This is the only way that it will stand up to the moisture level that is prevalent in the greenhouse. The other area that you need to be aware of is that there are two types of blowers on a furnace. One is what we call a propeller type. So um, it's a straight shaft with usually four blades, sometimes three, sometimes it's six, and it turns like a propeller. When you have this kind of a blower, you cannot put ductwork on. So if you're intending to distribute the heat with some sort of a duct, you have to have what we call a squirrel cage blower, which is something that turns the other way, but it has the capacity of working against resistance. And so it's the same type of mechanism as you would see on the inflator, which is the little fan that we use to put air between the two layers of plastic, except this is on a little bigger scale, and then you can add ductwork to it. If you are going to hang a heater, and most of the time it will be hung, the heater would have to have the capacity of some sort of a bracket on the top that it can be suspended. So these are things to request when you're talking to your heating contractor.
Okay. And then what are some of the do's and don'ts when installing the heater?
So generally speaking, growers would like to suspend the heater so that you will maximize uh, the floor space. Now, this is not that you will actually have something underneath it, but it just free the area to be able to move underneath the heater. Now, when you are suspending a heater, the weight of the heater is typically not that big of a deal, but you do need to take steps uh, to spread that weight out over roughly 12 feet of section of your greenhouse. And this can be done by on the top of the heater mounting two pieces of steel that are 12 feet long and then tying those to the hoops. And that way, since in most cases the heater will be set offset a little bit, so you can like it will be set something like this so that it will hang straight. The greenhouse heater will be need to be set close enough to the wall so that you can vent through it. The other thing to discuss with the heating contractor is the idea about high efficiency. And because the high efficiency units will uh, give you more heat in the greenhouse and less going out of the chimney. Now, when you attach a duct to the furnace, it is best to direct the heat down to the ground. If you're growing on benches, then you can bring that heat down underneath the benches, and then because heat will rise. When you have a propeller type and you're going to be blowing this, it will not have the capacity of distributing that evenly. So it would be important to get horizontal airflow fans to keep the air moving horizontally in the greenhouse and directing it away from the plastic. Now, the horizontal airflow fans would usually be running all the time because, especially in the wintertime, it's important to keep that air moving all the time so that you're not getting hot spots or dead spots where there's a disproportionate amount of moisture. So I hope you have found these tips a little bit helpful. We do have an information sheet that we can uh, provide on request so that you have this information in writing. And as usual, we look forward to working with you on your project and helping you to get it right. Till the next time, thank you for watching.